All
Melanie,
right.
we ready to get started on our first episode
I'm excited.
of the
Yes.
Duck Keepers Corner? Cool. Okay. What are we talking about this time in episode
Well,
one?
I guess it's important to talk about pros and cons of getting ducks because, right, like every animal, it should be a very educated decision to make, and you should be knowing what yourself getting into before getting them.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we both had ducks, we or have had ducks for years now, it's probably one of the more major life decisions I would say we've made. I have, made some pretty major life decisions such as, getting married, having kids, stuff like that. But owning ducks is a pretty big deal. So it's certainly not something I think people should take lightly. So
No, absolutely, absolutely. So they have turned our lives upside down.
and
So
inside
yeah,
out
yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure.
Now, I wanted to also say, we're talking about the pros and cons of getting ducks, and this is not necessarily a episode that's just for people who are duck curious. This is also we're going to dive into some information here that will be helpful for people who already have ducks as well. But we do want to make sure, kind of, as we kind of go through these episodes, that we're doing it somewhat chronologically, a little bit. So this episode might be more tailored a little bit towards people who don't yet have ducks, but as we kind of get into later episodes, we'll really take deeper dives into topics that are much more geared towards, I guess, improving or educating people that already have ducks. Um, so
Yes,
the,
right. Or also talking about common problems duck keepers may face with their duckies, thinking about, I don't know, predator proofing, some illnesses or diseases they may have, just general duck management and things like that.
for sure. And the other thing when we're talking about pros and cons, a lot of the cons that we're going to talk about, we're going to be things that you could potentially turn into positives, such as duck poop, which we'll get into, a great topic. And then the other thing is that we're going to basically, try to keep this concise and tight, so you don't have to have somebody sitting here listening for 2 hours to get to the gist of the information. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is the pros and cons of getting ducks, why you should get ducks, maybe why you shouldn't get ducks, a little bit of both, and to help people make a more informed decision. So hang tight and we will get into the meat of the episode here.
And then also don't forget at the end of the episode, we will announce our first giveaway winner. So stay till the end if you want to see if you won.
This is the Duck Keepers Corner video podcast, delivering honest duck talk for pet and backyard duck keepers. This podcast is produced by Aaron and Susan at Tyrant Farms. We're the authors of the Impractical Guide to Keeping Pet and Backyard Ducks, now available on Amazon. This episode of the Duck Keepers Corner was produced in collaboration with Melanie at Ducks of Providence. Okay, so the first thing Melanie thought would be important is maybe just to do a quick introduction of who we are, starting with you, and also tell us a little bit about your flock. I'm also curious to know more about your flock. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone, I'm Melanie. I'm, well, the face or duck mom of Ducks of Providence. I used to have seven, now I have eight. Well, let me see. This is our newest addition.
oh wow, she's here. Right on.
Yeah, she's here. She's always with me now. Um, we started in 2021 with our first three duckies. We ordered them as day-old ducklings from Metzer Farms. I knew that I wanted to have girls, so it was clear to me to get them from a breeder where we know the gender, because I didn't want to have any drake problems. So I thought, okay, girls only. And then so we started with them, as I said, November 2021. And they grew up in our house. They got attached to us, right? They're real pets. And then the next year around, springtime, Easter time, I learned about all these dumb ducks. And then, well, there happened to be some ducks in our area that needed, well, adoption home. So we decided to adopt Penny and Simon. So they joined our flock then in April 2022. And then also end of April, we got more ducks because someone else who got ducklings for Easter decided like, oh, they're too much. We don't know what to do them. They're too big. They're too messy. So we took them in to foster them. These were four back then. As they grew up, it turned out three of them were boys, one was a girl, so we kept the girl. Then we were already up to six. It was never planned. I only wanted three.
Mm,
Well, duck math is real too.
duck math for sure.
And then, well, then we had our six duckies until fall of 2022 when we found Krümel. She basically just appeared as a duckling at our yard, probably because we still don't know where she came from. But she was probably attracted by our ducks quacking, so she was just there. We scooped her up, raised her. So she's our very spoiled part-time house duck, meaning she sleeps inside the house in the night, spends the evenings with us, but during the day she's outside with the rest of the flock. And then, well, since Easter Sunday, we have another baby, so we also just found her because back here we have a pond that's a public pond, but there's also some dump ducks there. They have been there for years. They are well adapted and they have kids of multi generations there now. But all these kind of, well, mixed breeds. I guess she just got lost, but none of the moms back there wanted her. So now she lives with us.
Now she is
Number
your duckling.
8.
So it sounds like you're gonna have an endless supply of ducks based on your situation with the pond right there in your backyard, a public pond. So,
Yeah, right. But the thing is, I mean, technically, I never wanted so many ducks because also we were kind of limited in space here. But on the other hand, right, I cannot just let them die, right? So,
yeah, that's hard.
it's tough. But I mean, with all the other ducks there, as I said, most of them, I mean, everyone else there is well adapted. They have been there for years.
Hmm.
We still, well, keep an eye out. They get some duck food, especially in the winter, that they survive. But they all can fly, so they're all good. They usually go between the ponds in our neighborhood, so they're relatively good.
So in total right now you have, did you say 8 or 9, including the
8.
new duckling? Eight?
8.
Okay. And then the breeds, I know you have some crested that have interesting problems, which we'll talk about later down the road. And
Yes.
what other breeds do you have?
Well, we do have original three. We have Emma, Schnadrinchen, and Hertha. Emma and Schnadrinchen, they're both white crested, so actually this year is Miss Emma.
Okay.
Um, then we have Hertha. We initially wanted a silver apple yard, but she turned out to be a Welsh Harlequin.
Hmm.
Well, I know you have a lot of Welchies as
Yeah, we
well.
love Welshies.
Yeah, and then Penny and Simon. So Penny is an Ancona duck. She's a very rare duck. She's also um on the list for conservation. Simon is a Cayuga. Then Ronja is also a Cayuga.
Hmm.
Um, our Krümel, she is a khaki, and then this little one we don't know yet. Probably a mix between Cayuga and Mallard.
Yeah. Melanie, something I'm going to pause really quick and just say about you personally. I don't know if you like saying this, but you are an actual scientist. I think that's kind of important. And
Yeah.
you're not originally from America. Which explains your really cool accent. You're from
No, yeah, yeah. So I'm from Germany originally. I came to the States about 10 years ago. Well, this year's our 10th anniversary here. Um, and yeah, I'm a chemist by training. I actually came to the States to do my postdoctoral studies. Then, well, just stayed, I guess. I'm a professor by now in biomedical engineering, but yeah, since I'm research driven, I always love to learn everything that there's to learn about ducks. I'm
Mhm.
digging through a lot of avian veterinary books and scientific research articles to just yeah, learn everything that I can learn about ducks and duck
Yeah,
keeping and duck anatomy and whatever else there's
yeah.
to learn.
We do the same, but I have a feeling with your brain that you're probably able to retain a lot more information than we are. But at least I can't speak for my wife because she's also got a biology background. But anyway, so you're probably, I have a feeling in 10 years you'll be the country's foremost duck expert.
Well, I don't know about that, but it just might merging my two passions. So that's
Hmm.
just it. But I guess enough about me. Let's tell me about you and your
Yeah,
ducks.
so just my name is Aaron, and the name of our website is tyrantfarms.com. I should also say ducksofprovidence.com is your website
Mm.
for anyone listening who's interested. And so we started, number one, I'm not the tyrant. That was my wife's kind of joking nickname many years ago because she can be a little bossy at times. Um, and so, yeah, we got ducks. I think our first ducks were in 2013. We just started looking. We wanted, we have a kind of an organic slash permaculture edible landscape. I guess some people would call it a homestead or something along those lines. Have a little bit of issues with terminology on this stuff. Anyway, we have an edible organic landscape, and we said we wanted to produce some of our own protein here on site. So we started looking at animals that would be a good fit. And, our first thing was, we want to raise egg, we want to produce eggs. So let's go get some chickens. And then we're like, well, we probably should research this a little bit before we dive in. And then we realized that, this is over 10 years ago. So it's kind of a lot has changed. There wasn't much on ducks back then. But we realized ultimately that ducks were kind of a better fit for our climate and situation for a number of reasons. We're in a hot, humid, and very wet climate here in the Southeast and South Carolina. And we also just kind of like ducks better. We don't have anything against chickens, but ultimately we decided to get our first ducks. We went to a local breeder and kind of had the worst case scenario happen. He didn't know how to sex ducks. We didn't know how to sex ducks. So we picked out these cute little ducklings. I think we took home 4 ducks that day, ducklings. Three of them ended up being males, one female. Not a good ratio, so that didn't go very well.
Mm.
Thankfully, had an actual farm friend who took the other drakes. We kept one of them. Ultimately, ended up getting more ducks. We started off with Welsh Harlequins, and like you, we also ultimately ended up rescuing ducks as well from Carolina Waterfowl Rescue
Mhm.
in Indian Land. So if anybody is in the Carolinas or anywhere close by, that's a really wonderful rescue to support. I'm going to say a lot about them in episodes ahead as well. And today we have, I'll kind of lose track of the numbers. I think we have 10 ducks total.
Okay.
We have a kind of wide range of breeds too, which is interesting because you got to see maybe a little bit of variability between the different breeds is somewhat, it's kind of hard to say when you have a single, runner, is his behavior representative of the breed or not? But
Mhm.
anyway, we have a gray runner. I think they're even called blue runners. We have 2 white layers. We have a Peking, jumbo Peking, who's absolutely hilarious. She's just a big old pig. A bunch of Welsh Harlequins, and we have a Cayuga and a Buff Orpington. So anyway, kind of a
Wide
wide range of.
range.
So it's nice to look out there and see all the different colors and sizes. Kind of funny creatures.
No, yeah, I enjoy that too. Um, Seeing, yeah, a lot of different types of ducks, and yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah. All right, so that's about us. And I guess we can start talking into some of the pros. So for people who are considering getting ducks, let's start with the positives first. What would you say are maybe, I don't know, starting from the best thing to kind of down the list here. What do we think?
Well, I would say the very best thing is ducks. Ducks are just so delightful, right? Just looking at them, watching them, they're just so much fun to watch. They're hilarious. They also are good emotional support animals. So they, right, if you're around ducks, they just calm you down immediately. And I always have a smile on my face whenever I'm around my ducks, even if I'm
Hmm.
around some other ducks, right? Just when I'm random places and see ducks, I'm always happy.
Yeah,
So I don't
they're
know what
kind of
it is about ducks, but yeah, they just make me
yeah,
happy.
they're kind of like feathered clowns to us. But although sometimes clowns can be a little scary, ducks are never really scary. Um, yeah, that is one maybe a pro that we didn't really talk about beforehand is that if a chicken gets mad at you, it can give you a little peck or maybe a little hit with its spur. If a duck gets very irritated with you, the worst thing that could happen is it will take its little bill and grab onto your leg or something like that. But they're basically completely harmless.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you have a kid, that or a baby, that actually could be a pretty important difference if you're going to be interacting with them.
Yeah, I mean, with their flat bills, right? I mean, there's not much they can do to hurt you, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing they can, I mean, if you their claws, right? If you have them um on your lap or something, if you're just
Hmm.
wearing shorts or something, I mean, they can scratch you a little bit, but that's all.
Yeah. Now, are you experiencing that situation right now as we're talking?
No, I'm not with her. I mean, she's tiny, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't do anything. But I mean, with the bigger ones, I mean, yeah, if you have them
Yeah.
on your lap or so, sometimes I have some scratches, but
Do you have a
all right.
little towel down under, or are you just currently getting pooped on?
No, we have a towel.
Okay. Good call. Good call. Okay. One of the big ones, obviously, that the pros eggs is why most people probably start, us included, why we started raising ducks. They're large eggs. They're delicious eggs. They are. Oh, that's a very cute creature. Now, what breed do we think we have, or is she a mix?
We think she's a mix between Cayuga and again our wild mallards out here.
Yeah, interesting. Be
We'll
interesting.
see.
It's
But
always
yeah.
fun to see how they feather out and what they end up looking like relative to when they're ducklings.
Yeah, she's about 2 weeks old now, so yeah, in about a week. Well, she will be in her ugly duckling phase.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast they grow up. 6 weeks,
It
and you're
is
like
insane.
in
Yeah.
college. Yeah. Um, so the eggs on that front, is that one of the primary reasons that you started raising ducks, or is that really not a consideration?
Not at all. I mean, that
Mhm.
is kind of, well, a byproduct, right? So I have pets that poop my breakfast basically, but it was never really a main reason for us to get ducks. I mean, I was reading that ducks are laying a lot of eggs, but I didn't really believe it until I saw it. Right, the
Mhm.
first year our girls were laying every day, so we had more eggs than we could possibly eat. So we were giving them away to neighbors and stuff like that. We started freezing them and, well, just too many eggs. So
Yeah.
now it has tapered off a little bit. So now they're in their third year of life. So they already slowed down a little bit. But still, with six girls, it's a lot of eggs. But yeah, that was never our plan.
Mhm.
Um, no.
Yeah. We'll probably do a whole episode just about eggs, believe it. I think that might be warranted just as far as the qualities of duck egg, what's unique about them, how they're different from chicken eggs. Because there's actually a lot to be said there. One thing I will say that I think is important even as we're discussing the pros
Just
is
need to
that
look at that.
people, oh yeah, sure. I think it's important that people realize that there's different management approaches to ducks, and the more they lay eggs, and the more that you kind of force them to lay eggs, which we'll talk about, with the in commercial operations, obviously, like you have artificial lighting and they're basically maximizing every single factor they can to get as much production out of a bird as they can. And then they call the birds every 18 to 24 months. Most people that are raising these ducks, like they care about them, they're pets. And if you
Mm,
do that, you're going to end up with some really sick or, injured or dead ducks and high vet
yeah.
bills. So I think, again, in some of the later episodes, we'll dive into different management approaches that actually reduce egg production in order to increase health span and lifespan of these birds, which seems to make a lot more sense for people like us.
No, right, and you're absolutely right. And in this sense, ducks laying eggs can be a pro and a con, right? I mean, meaning the pro, yes, you have some extra protein, but the con is the reproductive problems they can develop over time, which can lead to very hefty vet bills.
Yeah.
Um,
And
if
we
you
have
really
definitely
care about,
experienced.
right, them as pets,
Yeah.
you're really concerned about their health, so that can be a real issue.
Yeah. Another pro that I'll just kind of quickly bring up is the connection to food. I think that's something that's really lacking in a lot of people's lives is, I don't certainly expect most people to like produce all their food or something like that, but we just like to go out and our son gets to go out and, he loves going out there and doing the little, basically he knows where his eggs come from, so he knows the animals that produced it. And there's something that's kind of unspeakable and magical about that process where
Mhm.
it's here's this creature that you're tending or this plant that you're tending and as it's going throughout its life, depending on how you care for it and whatnot, it can produce enormously healthy food for you right there in your own yard. And that's pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So the connection to food. And what would you say might be some other pros of getting ducks?
I mean, they can be also good pest control, right? Speaking of growing food in the
For
yard or in
sure.
your garden. So if you're, well, growing some stuff like lettuces or whatever, just your own produce, I mean, they love slugs, snails, all kinds of bugs. So they're
Yeah.
always hunting. And I know a lot of people swearing about runner ducks for that reason, right? Because they're especially fond of snails and slugs. But
Hmm.
even regular domestic duck breeds are good foragers
I've
and
never
really
had a duck turn down a snail or a slug. They
right?
love them. Unless it's like we've had some that the snails are so big that the ducks can't quite get it down. And so then they just like go crazy on it and, chomp and try to swallow it and they bring it over to their water bowl and whatnot. But yeah, generally I've never seen any one of our breeds of ducks all seem very, very fond of slugs and
Mm.
snails to the point that it can get somewhat disgusting sometimes where they generate, I guess they swallow so much snail mucus or something that they almost start get like frothing at the mouth, and then they have to get this is kind of gross, but they're ducks, so they're going to be gross, and so we have to put water out for them to kind of manage
Mm.
the mucus content that they've ingested. Anyway, kind of a gross duck story that has happened occasionally. Uh, so on another big I consider it to be a pro is poop. So
Mm.
Some people might consider that a con. I guess it can be either one. But for
Depends
us,
on the
since we have
context.
what's that? Context,
Depends
yes,
on the
exactly.
context. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're producing a lot of if you're growing a lot of plants, then plants need soil fertility. And if you're trying to build your soil, manures are traditionally, historically, the way you do that. So to have a readily available manure source right there in your yard is really helpful for us. So, and also the spent bedding is great. We make compost with that. We also compost
Mhm.
most of the stuff to kind of make it where it's not, rich in pathogens, which is also important. So you wouldn't want to go and put, duck poop right on lettuce bed that you're about to eat or something like that. So we mostly use them in our, I should say, mostly use the manure if it's or the bedding if we're not composting it under like perennial plants, fruit trees,
Mm,
nut trees, stuff like that. So it doesn't matter. It's not spattering onto the stuff we're eating. If
mm.
I'm picking a persimmon out of a tree, it will never have touched or been in contact with the pathogen. So if that makes sense.
No, yeah. I mean, we also, well, use the duck poop for fertilizing. So we just got a rain barrel and we just collect all the um, water from their, well, bathing bowls basically, and where the poop is in, and just collect that so that I can water my plants with it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we also have a small compost pile. Um, but I guess I cannot collect every bedding they produce. We just don't have that big of a compost pile. But every now and then I throw some of that in there as well.
hmm Yeah. I can attest to having very happy, healthy plants as a result of, whatever that is. What's the math on that? Let's see. 12 years of soil building on our property. So I
Hmm.
can, go out now where we used to have kind of hard packed red clay in our beds. And now it's, 1.5, 2 feet deep of just rich black soil that's just teeming with, worms and all kinds of wonderful life. So we basically have very, very fertile soil, which leads to very happy plants. So,
Oh,
and
that
healthy
sounds
plants.
great.
Yeah.
Well, I
Um,
guess now that we've talked so much about pros, right? Maybe we should also, well, talk about some cons. And then
yeah,
since we were on the topic of poop, right, well, poop might be golden for some. It can be a problem sometimes as well.
for sure.
Right, just speaking from our experience, because our ducks, as I mentioned earlier, especially Krümen, is a part-time house duck, meaning she spends the evenings and nights in the house, and having duck poop in the house is not the nicest thing to have.
That would definitely fall in the con category. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all about managing that, right? So inside the house, we have a small playpen for her, so she has pine shavings in there, and we change them. At least spot clean that every day, and then when it's completely soiled, it gets completely cleaned. And then while she's in the house, she's wearing duck diapers, so that we can, well, keep the poop at the minimum. So obviously, we change the diapers regularly enough that she's not sitting in her own poop all the
hmm
time. But so yeah, that's definitely a consideration. And then funny
Yeah.
enough, before we got ducks, I insisted in changing, well, our carpet to hardwood floor so that it's easier to clean in case we do have some messes. So
Yeah.
um
Good call. Now you just threw something out that we can't just go past because people who might be listening to this for the first time who've never had
mm,
ducks, you just mentioned duck diapers, which is a big topic for us too, and
mm,
yeah, that might also be a feature of a future episode. But so for people who have never heard of this, they're technically harnesses that you
mm,
buy,
yeah.
and then you can put like different types of inserts in there. When we do it, we take like half of a human baby diaper, cut it in half, stick it in there and that's sort of the absorbent thing. And then you take that out once the ducks have done their business, which they do about every 10 seconds. After it's kind of filled up, you dump that, and then you put a new insert in, and then eventually you wash the actual harness. So there are unfortunately not many duck diaper harness vendors out there anymore, and we're
No,
talking
no.
to somebody who's an actual not seamstress. I don't know what you basically an expert in engineering fabrics and whatnot, talking about potentially producing duck diaper harnesses. So I don't know if we're actually end up doing that, but just because we have a need, other people have a need, as strange as it might sound, for duck diaper harnesses. And not just for, because you want to bring a pet indoors. Sometimes you have a sick or injured animal that you actually have to bring in or bring them to a vet, whatever it happens to be. And it's really important to have that without getting poop absolutely everywhere. So,
Yeah.
so
No,
pros and
that's
cons of
right.
poop.
Yeah.
Um, Another big one that we should probably mention very quickly for people is that it might not be legal to own ducks where you are. So you have homeowners association, you have potential, municipal regulations. Like here where we are in Greenville, South Carolina, I want to say, I think this is the case. You can only have up to six either chickens or ducks in your yard. We're not in the city limits, thankfully, but we had a friend who was violating that restriction, let's say, and thankfully she got away with it, but she ultimately ended up moving anyway outside of the city.
As you said, so it could be either the HA rules or city ordinances that either completely restrict that or limit the number of ducks or poultry or animals in general you can have. So just be aware of that and make sure that you read that beforehand. I mean, sometimes, and that's a weird thing I've heard about people where they were allowed to have ducks or chicken, and at some point they changed the rules or limited the number, and then they came after them saying, oh, now you need to get rid, even though they had them for years. And that's super unfair, but that unfortunately happens sometimes as well. Um, but yeah, it's just very important to be aware of the
Yeah,
rules that are in your area.
yeah,
And
that's pretty
then
sad.
the
So yeah,
next
you don't
thing
want
is
to.
also, oh, sorry about that. I just want to say, right, apartments. An apartment is probably not the right place for a duck or multiple ducks to have. Right, that's another con. So ducks are not your typical house pet like a dog or cat because they do need access to the outdoors. They might want to be in the sun, they want to splash in water, they want to have fresh grass under their feet, they want to forage. So if you live in an apartment, reconsider getting a duck.
Yeah, hamsters, cats, things like that might be a little better in that situation. And just buy your eggs from the store.
Yeah.
The other biggie is noise. So
Mm.
ducks, female ducks, because drakes, they kind of make this little raspy, like blurp, 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 kind of. They don't really. They can get as upset as they want to, and your neighbor's not really going to hear them.
Yeah.
If one of your females gets upset, like everybody in your neighborhood is going to know about it. So
For sure.
yeah, so that's not necessarily a positive thing. We think it's pretty cute, but it's not exactly the most beautiful sound for people who have not experienced it. So, and the other funny thing with our ducks is they become very, they love a schedule, right? Like so every night they're in their fenced backyard during the day, and when it hits whatever, duck 30, depending on what time of year it is, and it's time for we let them
Yeah.
out in the rest of the yard and we kind of go out and forage and garden and all that kind of stuff. Uh, if we're late, like 15 minutes, they're gonna start quacking. They're gonna let us know that, like let them out right now. And
Uh-huh.
thankfully, we have neighbors that think they're cute and wonderful and all that stuff. So not a big deal. But if you might have neighbors that might not like that, or if you're really kind of, have a small yard
Mhm.
and are packed in, it might not be a great situation. Or you might at least want to go talk to your neighbors before you get ducks and kind of check in with them and say, we might have some wild
No,
cats coming.
absolute good point. I mean, we did talk to our left and right neighbors before we got our ducks saying, hey, we're planning to get ducks. Are you cool with it? So they were
Mm,
fine. But yeah, that's a big point too. And speaking of noise, right, in the schedule, our ducks are exactly the same. Emma, we always say she's hangry because whenever it's dinner time, she is so loud. You can't ignore her really.
yeah.
It's hilarious. And even in the morning, right? They know when I let them out of their house. So I don't need an alarm clock because the ducks wake me up every
Yeah.
morning. It's
Yeah. And then when you're letting them out of the coop, like they're so
Mhm.
excited and they're
Yeah.
just, you almost have to like put on, earbuds or something to kind of block out the noise cancel. It's so loud.
Yeah.
But that's also part of their entertainment and charm. The other biggie is dirty. Ducks have kind of a dirty reputation, and we've written about this on our website as well. You probably have also. So they do poop a lot. They do require water. We really recommend people get a pond or something where they can swim in order to be ultimately their happiest, healthiest selves. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be a kiddie pool, but then you're going to dump that, and that's going to make things dirty. We built an in-ground pond many, many years ago with a kind of a Skippy biofilter system that we had to come up with because there was nothing out there at the time. That's where my wife's biology background came in handy, um, and that's really been a game changer for us because that's
Mhm.
we're not dumping it, we're not just stays there, and we have to kind of clean it occasionally and change the pumps and all that kind of stuff, but it's way less maintenance and disgustingness than having a kiddie pool you have to dump. And but anyway, so on the messiness front, to us, it's like if I put 10 humans in a backyard and it would get pretty gross right after. So it's not really the duck's fault, so to speak. It's sort of the system that you design for them. And that really needs to be kind of paid attention to up front. Otherwise, things will get quite dirty because there's a lot of poop and there's a lot of water splashing and there's feathers everywhere as they molt and do their thing. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I would also add when it comes to, well, making a mess, right? Since they love water, play with water all the time, and if there's water and if there's soil, right, there will be muddy puddles everywhere. So
yep,
they're digging holes all over our yard, right? Especially after it was raining or while it is raining. They're just the happiest ducks ever, but my yard just looks like, I don't know.
a
Um,
pigsty, duck
oh
sty.
yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to live with it, right? I mean, when you have ducks, I mean, that's just what they do.
Yeah, and we put down at least once a year we use like a triple ground aged mulch. So it's kind of gentle on their flippers.
Mhm.
Otherwise, yeah, it would be an absolute mud pit in our backyard. And we also we again use the ducks that disgustingness to our advantage in our backyard. I think we have let's see, pomegranates, blueberries, thornless blackberries, thornless raspberries. Anyway, we have a ton of and persimmons. Anyway, a ton of
Mhm.
edible plants back there. So water and poop is very good for those plants, and they're quite happy as a result of our ducks'
Yeah.
disgustingness. And then the mulch kind of protects the soil, so it kind of covers it up. It slowly breaks down, becomes more soil. So I mean, the soil in our backyard is absolutely ridiculous as far as how good it is, and that's largely thanks to our ducks' grossness. So, and we are able to manage that again with mulch. So it's not, if I go back there right now, in shoes, I'm not gonna be like stepping in mud and muck. It's gonna be mulch with a little bit of poop on top until it rains, and then the rain washes it down into the mulch. And anyway, it's not too bad.
No, it sounds great. I mean, in our run, we for a few years now have artificial turf.
Mm,
That turned out the best solution for us because our yard is at the slope and we had pea pebbles or mulch, but that was just kind of running down
washing
all
up.
the time. So just piling up at one side of the coop. So that was not very useful or the run better. So yeah, now we have artificial turf, which is very easy to clean. We just hose it down, right, a
Yeah,
couple of
good on their
times a
feet too.
day. It's also, well, soft on their feet because with the pea pebbles, we also started seeing problems with bumblefoot. So, yeah, there was a lot of trial and error in the beginning, but now we have a really kind of good system in place.
Yeah, yeah, it's important too. Over time you kind of develop a system that's kind of appropriate for your place wherever you happen to be and whatever however. Anyway, so that's something that people consider is you don't have to have absolutely everything figured out, and you probably won't from day one. You're gonna
Uh,
improvise and test things out, see what works, what doesn't work, and kind of keep going and improving things as you go along.
yeah.
Another big one is might be evident by all the things we've already talked about is the time and care. This is ducks are not really a very low maintenance animal, I guess you could say, um, especially over time. So you have to let them in, and everything wants to eat them. So
Mhm.
that's another downside is that predators are prone to looking
Yeah.
at ducks as a nice meal. And one thing that really a lot of people find out the hard way is that in urban environments, there's actually a lot more predators than there are in rural environments, like acre per acre. I think there's like
Mm.
5 times more raccoons like in a city than there is in a rural area. So even we had a friend, same friend that I mentioned earlier, downtown Greenville. She got geese because she thought she was gonna, the geese would keep away the predators. And
Mhm.
she had geese, she had chickens and ducks, and the geese got eaten by raccoons
Wow.
very quickly, which is crazy. I think that
It
geese are
is, yeah,
obviously
because I
large
mean,
birds.
you would always think like these are the protectors of the flock.
Yeah. Well, they were trying to protect the flock, so
Yeah.
they served that function, but unfortunately were killed. So these are
Damn.
not animals that you can just sort of let, free range all
Mm.
day out in a forest or a field and expect them to be alive when you return home.
Yeah.
So, um, and the time and care side of it, they have to be fed, they have to be watered, they have to be, put up at night, let out in the morning. There's a lot of, I don't know, for our flock of 10, I'd say there's probably at least 30 minutes of work a day, as far as just, you know, stuff I have to do to take care of a duck. So I don't know what
Oh,
your numbers might be a little higher if you have a duckling. So
much higher. Well, I
it's
mean,
more.
with her for sure, but I mean, even if not, I would say it's about 2 hours a day that we spend, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we have a relatively small-ish backyard, and our setting is not as big, so there's a lot more cleaning involved.
Hmm.
Um, so there's the first cleaning run in the morning. So I just hose everything down, change all the water bowls and everything. And then so in the afternoon, they get supervised yard time because I will not allow them unsupervised because again of predators in the area. There's a
Hmm.
lot of hawks. There's bobcats. I mean, they usually in the night here, but then there's also a lot of dogs in the neighborhood that frequently escape or cats that
Yep.
are roaming around. So I just don't want to risk anything. So they only are allowed if I'm or my husband is present with them in the yard. So my dad alone is then some time that we spend. I mean, sure, I use the time to do some other stuff as well, like taking care of my plants or just relaxing and
Hmm.
doing stuff and watching them because they're cute. But and then when it comes nighttime, I also well, and then in the afternoon there's also coop cleaning, because we also have a relatively small night house for them, so that needs attention every day basically. And then, yeah, comes nighttime, I hose everything down again when they're in their bed so that everything is nice and clean when they get up in the morning.
Yeah. On that note, let's talk about vacation. That's something that some people like to do occasionally. So
No
if you
vacation
have,
no more.
yeah. So for us, thankfully, we have a really good duck sitter, and we've had a relationship with her for many years. But so that's something else that people don't necessarily consider when you get an animal is if you want to leave town, those animals need to be cared for while you're gone. So that's a biggie. And ideally, you can kind of design a system that makes it somewhat easy, where you're fungible, where someone else can come in and do the function that you do, and um, you make sure your ducks are alive when you return. That's not always so easy because it sounds like for you it would be we have a spreadsheet or not a spreadsheet. We have a big checklist of stuff, and our
Yeah.
duck sitter loves that. But it's expensive, and I don't even think about all the stuff I do until I actually write it down.
Yeah.
And then it's like, wow, I guess there's a lot to do here. But she likes it, and she can do it all in about I don't know, 20, 30 minutes on each session, where it takes me maybe a total of 30 minutes a day. So I'm a
Mm,
little more efficient, just got to do it all the time. Um, but bottom line is, it's important to consider that as if you want to go on vacation and you don't have a duck sitter, then you need to find one and make sure that the person can do the things they need to do while
mm.
you're gone. So,
That is a very good point. And one thing I also completely underestimated before we got our ducks. Um, I mean, like when I started our duck journey, I was obviously already trying to do as much research as possible before I got them just to know what I'm getting into. And then I stumbled upon your blog, right? And then also your post about, oh, what to do when you go on vacation. And I'm
yeah.
like, shoot, too late. Now I have
Yeah.
ducks.
Oops.
Um, but I mean, yeah, in a sense, we're also lucky we have a neighbor. She's well taking care of the ducks when we're gone, but well, we only go on short trips because we don't want to put too much work on her. I mean, well, our little kid is happy because she also loves ducks, so she's just playing with the ducks in the mud
Yeah.
while our friend is cleaning the coop and stuff like that. But then we have Krümel, and that's, I guess, a little bit more complicated. She was never planned, right? But she, since the way everything started with her, she's so attached to us, she's imprinted, and she doesn't want to stay with the other ducks outside over the night. So traveling is getting even more complicated now. So we take her with us now. So we only do road trips because taking a duck on a plane is not possible anymore, from my understanding. So
No emotional support ducks.
yeah, but even still, I think they do not allow them at all, even if
Yeah.
they're an emotional support animal. But so yeah, that makes traveling a little bit more complicated with a duck.
Indeed. Indeed. Uh, let's see. The other things that's really a biggie that we also didn't realize at first was avian vets. At least they were pretty hard to find. So most vets won't actually see a duck. They're considered an exotic animal.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we have a wonderful vet that I always give shout outs to, Dr. Holbert at I'm sorry, Health Point Animal Clinic in Duncan, South Carolina. It's kind of close to us. Anyway, she's wonderful. Her staff's wonderful, and she provides extraordinarily she first time I met her, she's like, "Ducks are my heart." She raises ducks, and anyway, she knows a lot about ducks. She's worked for animal or waterfowl rescue operations, and so she's phenomenal. But she's also very rare. We have to drive 45 minutes to go see her, and I don't know if there's anybody closer, but for us. But we live in Greenville, South Carolina is not a small town, so if you live somewhere maybe more rural, or wherever, you need to check first to see if there's avian vets near you. And there's avian vet finders on the website you can find to look that
Mm.
up. So it's not something that you have to kind of guess about. But definitely something that we would recommend doing before you get ducks is make sure there's an avian vet near you because like any animal, it is going to require care at some point in its life that's beyond what you can, treat at home. So that's a pretty important one on the
Yeah.
negative side, perhaps.
Very good point. I mean, we are also kind of lucky in the sense that we do have a few, right? So we live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, so there are some avian vets, but still they're also about 45 minutes to an hour away. Yeah, and they're also expensive.
Yes.
So that's another thing. Because ducks are exotic, so they charge extra for sure.
Yeah. Yep, yep. The other, this is important. I've seen this on social media where people just get one duck, and that's a big no-no typically, unless there's some weird circumstance. But for the most part, that's really not a great idea. Ducks are
Yeah,
really social animals, and they really want to be around other ducks. I mean,
yeah.
as wonderful as humans are, but ducks are a lot better companions for ducks.
Oh yeah.
So we recommend people get at least three to start with. That way, worst case scenario, one dies, then the other one's not left abandoned. So you have to, then there'll be, obviously two ducks, so there's still somebody there for the duck. And when I say somebody, I mean another duck, not another human.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so that's something else. You can't just get one duck, which could be a pro or a con depending on how you look at it. Um,
Yeah.
let's see, any other cons to talk about here? I think another big one, maybe you'll disagree with here, uh, is that you will not save money on eggs when you get
Not at
ducks.
all.
Uh, in fact, you'll probably produce the world's most expensive eggs that you could possibly do. And the reason for that is, a commercial egg operation is maxed out for efficiency. I mean, everything is all about economies of scale and, cheap, cheap, cheap is across the board. Uh, and they call their animals if they get sick. They call their animals when they stop being productive. So, I mean, you're not going to compete with that in a backyard setup. You're going to have to build your coop to protect them. That's going to be, even best case scenario, hundreds of dollars, even if you kind of go on the cheap with stuff. Probably a run during the day for most people to make sure their animals don't get eaten, then. And then there's the vet bills and stuff like that. So that's not a cheap egg by the time the eggs start coming. So if that is the top reason for someone wanting to get ducks, strongly advise
Yeah.
buying eggs instead and
Yeah.
not raising ducks.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I guess the most expensive egg we ever had was about $500, and that was Penny when she was egg bound, and we needed to see the vet to save her life. So, yep,
eggs.
that was our golden egg.
Yeah, we had an egg-bound duck that had something like four eggs come out. That
Mm.
was very early in the
Yeah,
our duck raising career. Thankfully, we have not had that happen again. But man, yeah, that's crazy when that
yeah.
happens. Um, And the other thing we have, so ducks are not a short time commitment. That's another biggie.
Mm.
If
Hmm.
it, not, I don't mean like on a daily basis here. I'm talking about like in the long run. So we have 10-year-old ducks in our flock right now. We actually have a 10-year-old, I think she's 10 now, is still laying eggs, believe it or not. And
Mm.
most of our ducks that are that old have shut off the reproductive systems. Um, but that's a long-lived animal. I think the longest we've ever had live is maybe 11 years. So these are not something like a hamster that's gonna, live for a couple years and then
Yeah,
die or something like that. So something to consider is uh, what happens, maybe you're an older person or maybe you envision yourself traveling the world in 10 years and being free of obligations. If so, ducks might not be the optimal animal to get for you. So
yeah. Very good point. Yeah. And there's well, Peter, he's 23, believe it or not. You may have seen on Instagram. So he's from Majestic Waterfowl Sanctuary,
wow.
and he's currently I guess on vacation. Um, well, but anyway, so he's adorable, but yeah, he's 23, right? He's blind, but he's still getting along well, and it's just adorable. I sometimes hope that my ducks get that old, right? I mean, obviously, if they're still healthy and happy, but yeah, they can be old.
Yeah, I think that might be a world record. Like, I want to say that, or at least getting close to it. I want to say it's 23, 25 is maybe like the oldest recorded
Yeah.
duck. I could be wrong about that. That's impressive. Um, and on that note, ducks, that is a con is they will die at some
Mm,
point, whether young, hopefully not, or old, that happens. And when your pets die, that's it's emotionally challenging, to say the least, especially the ones you really care about, which
mm,
we all get attached to certain ones, for various reasons.
mm.
And I'm sure you've experienced that maybe by now. But that's hit us hard a few times over the years when we really have a special duck that you know, you, they're gone, and that's that. So that's tough to lose a pet. Um, And the other side of that is ducks are a little addictive. So, as you've experienced with duck math, is maybe perhaps a con is you'll very likely, if you get into ducks, be getting more ducks and end up with more ducks than you ever imagined you had, and then getting jealous when other people have more ducks than you, and it just spirals out of control, and you end up, you know, with a duckling on your lap as you're doing a podcast about ducks.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's true.
well, I guess I don't know if there's any other cons. I mean, there's probably some other stuff that we haven't really covered on the pros and cons list of the Ducks.
Well,
But
but
I
I guess
guess,
it was the majority of it, or at least the big points, to give everyone here kind of a big picture about, right, what are the good things about getting DAX, and then, well, what are the downsides, right? What should you consider
mhm.
before getting DAX as pets? And yeah, maybe you found out right after this conversation that, well, maybe I'm not in the right setting to get a DAC right now. And that's fine too. Right? You can get them either later when everything is right in your setup, or just go and visit DAX elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, the last thing that we really want to have happen, and the thing that we all want to avoid, is having people who are unprepared
Mhm.
or not in a situation to where they should get ducks to get ducks, and then those ducks either end up dead, sick, eaten, abandoned, whatever happens to be. Those are not good situations. So it's better to really, do that thinking and calculations up front in order to avoid making that mistake.
Yeah,
So a big point of what we're doing here is try to basically reduce or eliminate animal suffering that's unnecessary.
yeah.
Um, all right. On a positive note, let's talk about the winner giveaway announcement. What are you going to be giving away this week?
Well, this week we're giving away two things from our Etsy store. So one is basically the t-shirt that I'm wearing right now with our duck Emma. It says "Don't duck with me," and then the other one will be a mug featuring our Drake Simon and the saying "Don't duck with me."
All right. I like it. And we have two giveaway winners. Melanie, I think the first one I have here is Joe Staley. So that's J.O. Staley. And then the second person, because also on our sign up, just provide some context here. If you want to sign up into the giveaway, you can go to either Ducks of Providence or Tyrant Farms, or go to our websites, or you can go to our Instagrams accounts and click through to the giveaway and sign up for it to enter to win. So that's where we're getting these names from. We're not just randomly drawing them out of a hat. Um, so the next person is Michelle, and we did not require first name or last name during the sign up. We just have emails. So Michelle did not give her last name, which is perfectly fine. And what we're going to be giving away is so we actually have a couple books that we published in the last year on our website. One is the Practical Guide to I love my wife. There she is with one of Piper, our favorite duck. And then we also have the Impractical Guide to Keeping Geese, which we wrote with one of our good friends, MJ Smith. But we're giving away, since we're talking about ducks, the duck book, and also we'll give them the choice of them being Michelle, the choice of a shirt from our website. Could either be Duck It, like the one I'm wearing here, or Duck My Life. Another one sounds like we have very similar taste and humor with ducks. So anyway, we'll be in touch with those folks to arrange their giveaways. And Melanie, what are we talking about? What's the plan for the next episode? What do you think?
Next episode, we are going, oh, see, I forgot. My
No worries.
brain.
Hey, this is our first episode, so things we're not going to be super polished here. I think
Yeah,
we were talking about where to get ducks and ducklings, and maybe the case for getting rescues.
that's
Um,
right.
so we
See, you're
we
better
we both
prepared
had a
than
lot
I
of
am.
no worries. We both had a lot of experience. I think we've kind of done all this. We've hatched eggs. from our own flock. We have raised duck or got ducklings from local breeders. We've gotten them from Metzer Farms ducklings. We've gotten rescues. So we've kind of done every possible scenario for sourcing ducks over the years. And you've gone through a lot of that as well. So I think it'll be interesting for folks to think about the various options and potentially some of the ethics of those or the pros and cons there as well. So look forward to talking about that next week.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that will be interesting for sure, right? From our own experience. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, when we were introducing ourselves and our vlogs, um, right, we also have rescues. We have some that we got from a breeder. We got, well, some that we just found. Well, there's a lot of interesting ways to get ducks.
yeah. And you have a pond in your backyard, which is amazing. So lots of ducks to be had there. We'll also be providing show notes for folks interested. We have a lot of, I guess, deeper dives into some of the topics we talked about today. So we'll have links to articles on your site, links to articles on our website, external links where applicable, and for anyone who wants to have access to that and take a little deeper dive. But I think that might be the conclusion of our first episode of the Duck Keeper's Corner. All right.
Well,
Cool.
awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to all the next episodes, and also I'm well, happy to see all your comments down below. What do you think about this episode? What do you think about the podcast in general? Do you want us to continue? Did you learn something you didn't know before? Yeah, just let us know.
Yeah.
And don't
And
forget to subscribe so that you have a chance to win something next time.
yeah, and please like, please share, all that good stuff. We really appreciate you listening and caring. And if you tell us not to do another episode, unfortunately, we might have to ignore that comment and keep going. But forgive any rustiness uh, or lack of professionality on my part. So, Melanie, you did great. But this is our first episode, so things are going to happen. But thanks for listening. We appreciate you. Bye, Melanie. Take care.
All right, bye, Aaron.
Bye. A quick but important note here at the end. The Duck Keeper's Corner started as a 50-50 collaboration between Melanie at Ducks of Providence and us, Tyrant Farms. However, after recording the first episode, for personal reasons, Melanie realized she could no longer continue on in that role. However, we hope, and she hopes also, to join us in future episodes as a guest. So thanks, Melanie, for all your help, and the Duck Keeper's Corner will continue. Thank you for tuning in to the Duck Keeper's Corner. Please like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For show notes, links to references, and other helpful duck resources mentioned in this episode, please see the video description on YouTube or visit tyrantfarms.com. And as always, be sure to quack up by watching or listening to other episodes of the Duck Keeper's Corner.